when the world has got you down. And
Alzheimer's sucks. It's an equal opportunity disease that chips away at everything we hold dear. And to date, there's no cure. So until there is, we continue to fight with the most powerful tool in our arsenal, love. This is Love Conquers Alls, a real and really positive podcast that takes a deep dive into everything Alzheimer's, the good, the bad, and everything in between. And now, here are your hosts, Susie Singer-Carter and me, Don Priest.
Hello, everybody. I'm Susie Singer-Carter.
And I'm Don Priest, and this is Love Conquers Alls. Hello, Susan.
Donald, how you doing?
I'm swell. How are you?
I'm good. I feel rejuvenated. Ask me why.
Why is that? Let me try that. Hey, Susan, why do you feel rejuvenated?
Well, you know how much I love music and dance.
I do
and
indeed.
You know how long we've been secluded in our editing corral over here.
Yes.
In editing Bayland.
We're
for
on
No
our
Country for Old
11th month of sequestered in the edit bay. So
yeah. So my dear friend Megan McLeod, who is an amazing human being and actress and voiceover extraordinaire,
and dog trainer,
I might add.
Extraordinaire.
Extraordinaire. She's just an incredible person, and but she had an extra ticket to see Chicago at the Pantages Theater, and guess who was her date? Me.
Wait, give me. Oh, I thought it was going to be multiple choice. Oh well, I guess it was you.
And guess who got their razzle dazzle on?
Multiple choice. I'm going with you.
Yeah, and 5, 6, 7, 8. So anyway, it was such a great show, you guys. If you're in LA, this cast is extraordinary. I loved it so much, and I needed it so much. I was literally, I have no idea why we were so fancy, but we were like in the 5th row center.
Wow.
So it was like I was on stage, and I felt like I just had like a fantasy that I was up there doing Fosse. Right? I was doing it. I was
jazz hands? Any
jazz hands
going
all
on?
day long. There
Yeah.
was jazz hands. It was spectacular. It was one of the best I've seen, and I highly recommend it. And I needed it. It was the best therapy. I feel like a new me.
I had something very similar while you were doing that.
And?
I stayed home with the dogs. That's it. But we did do jazz pause.
Did jazz pause, and you got
Yeah.
your razzle dazzle on.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the thrilling life I lead.
Yeah, I wonder if people don't know our situation. So just a little inside info. So Dawn and I are best friends since I'm 19, and we are. Well, I wrote a TV pilot based on us called Single Ever After, because we are roommates and have been for 10 years after my last divorce. And we are just BFFs and work together. We're co-producers, and we produce everything together. And we have a lot of fun because he's scared of me.
A lot of fun, totally scared. She's twice as strong as me. Which is, it's not good for me, but whatever. Although I let her do all the hard work, so that's good.
That's true. I do. I am the handy girl.
And now, first time in my life, I have 2 dogs. Never had dogs before, and so that's a whole nother.
It's a whole new world, and honestly, if Don's never had dogs, and they love him so much. He is the favorite, and he loves them so much too.
I do.
Yeah.
I don't like the things they do. that require cleaning up in the home. I don't like that at all. But no, they are special little chaps. Well, chaps and chapess.
And the queen.
Here,
and the queen
we're gonna pop up some pictures of them right now. There's Alfie, and who smiles. Yeah, it's crazy. We'll show a little of that. And then
that's real,
here's,
folks. That's real.
Yes. Here's Gidget.
And
Here's
there's
Gidget, the queen. She wears
queen.
pearls, has
She
the
does.
poof on the head.
Always.
And she's the
Rules the
busiest
roost.
dog in the world. She's
always
has
busy.
a job to do.
Always busy, has something to do. Everyone, all our friends, my daughters, they all say, Alfie is Dawn and Gidget is me, because Gidget's always busy, planning something.
And I get lost on the stairs. So
Yeah.
that's
And if there's food, you're happy.
there it is, and it's in my mouth.
That's right. Food and a good chair, and you're happy too. Good scratch
more
behind
does
the
one
ears.
need?
You're happy.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I'm happy. You know why?
Why is that?
Here's another reason why I'm happy, because we have a great guest today.
We do. We have an amazing guest today.
You love this person.
She's terrific.
You've
She's
learned
just-
you've grown to love her as
She's
I
sensational.
have. She is sensational.
Indeed.
We had such a great interview with her, and I interviewed her myself for No Country for Old People, our documentary. But now you got the chance to meet this delightfully
Yes.
brilliant, I should add, well-spoken, extremely knowledgeable woman. Now on this show, so
Right.
I would like you to share a little background of this.
I will now share some background, and it goes a little something like this. Advocate, leader, caregiver. Jenny Abeling is dedicated to helping those in need through the complexities of long-term care. Currently, she is the Governor's Commissioner on Senior Services, working tirelessly to raise up senior-related needs across the state of Oregon. Formerly the Essential Worker Healthcare Trust Director, Jenny led a first-in-the-nation approach to lift up long-term care workers by supporting their health and wellness. Now, she has launched JennyAbeling.com, where she provides personalized support to individuals, families, and long-term care workers, helping to navigate their care needs. Featured on CNN, Jenny shares her knowledge and experience through media, podcasts, speaking engagements, and events to harmonize empathy with her unique expertise. Jenny was recently honored by the Gray Panthers as a recipient of the coveted Above and Beyond Award, honoring long-term care workers. And now she has branched out as an author with a kids' book about long-term care titled A Kids' Book About Long-Term Care. She is truly a bright light in the world of caregiving, and we are thrilled to have her with us today. So let's say hello to Jenny Abeling. Hello, Jenny.
Hi.
Hey, thanks so much for having me here.
Of course. Thank you for coming and joining us. I'm happy to have you on and share what you do with everybody, because I had the pleasure of meeting you and connecting with you through LinkedIn. And you are also in our caregiving community, and you're an amazing advocate. And you also, FYI, she is participating in our documentary, and we're very happy to have you in the documentary. So we're just glad to share, because I'm a big fan of what you're doing. I love everything that you're doing. So why don't you share a little bit about the plethora of things that you do, because I know you started as a case manager, and then from there you worked for different organizations that advocated and consulted for residents and long-term care. So explain, let's get a little background on you, and then we can talk about the exciting things that are happening today.
Yeah, of course. So, I think everybody has their why of why they get into long-term care. Some choose to come into long-term care. Some, have it just drop in their lap when their family or friend needs a loved one. So I think I got started like most people, which is that my grandma had dementia. And she was the person that I just idolized and cared for and spent so much time with. So I saw her go through that journey as a child, made me want to help other people and help families. I started in public health, and I was looking at these big, large issues. And what I saw time and time again was that communities and families didn't really have support when it came to long-term care. And so I thought, I need to actually have boots on the ground experience. So I became a caregiver. I became a CNA, a certified nurse assistant. I worked in facilities. I worked in people's homes, did hospice, did acute care, worked in hospitals, kind of the whole plethora from beginning to end.
You really did. That's amazing. I didn't know.
Yeah. So, passing meds and helping people on knock shift at night. Like, you have to really see it all to really understand it. From there, I, started working for the state of Oregon, doing Oregon Health Plan, which is Medicaid in Oregon. And I learned so much in that position, going to people's homes, getting people signed up for long-term care services and supports through Medicaid. And then ultimately leaving there and then working at Aging and Disability Services for Multnomah County, which is the county in Portland, Oregon. That is a amazing program through Medicaid for long-term care supports and services for people to either receive care in their own homes or in facilities. So I would just travel around to people's homes. I do their care assessments. I connect them with caregivers. I'd help them navigate this broken system. And that's where I was like, oh my God, this is a shit show. Like, I'm hoping it's okay, I swear, but like, that's just me is
go to town.
Go to town.
Oh my God, like what a Band-Aid fix of so many issues. And when I was there, I made so many relationships and learned so much. And I made relationships with facilities. And those facilities were like, hey, Jenny, we want you to come work over here. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go work in the facilities. So I started with admissions into facilities. And that is one of the areas that people don't talk about a lot. But it's so important because then you really understand the money motivation of things in long-term care. Because the first thing you look at when you see somebody's medical record and they want to come to your facility is who is their payer.
Right.
So if it's Medicare, straight Medicare, you're like, oh my God, yes.
Raise the roof. Yes.
And then it's like, well, we got 20 days. Because when they hit the copay, a lot of people can't pay. So like, we got to get this person in and out in 20 days. But if you see a different payer and it says Medicaid on it, and then you look down and that person has any sort of other situation happening, that's when you're like, oh, no. We don't have any beds available. Even though, like, they'll say, we don't have any Medicaid beds available, which is not a real thing. It's just like, whatever. So then I worked my way up into the facilities. They were like, you're so good. We want you to be, this, and we want you to do the marketing, and we want you to do all the relationship building, and then all the social media, and the, branding, and website, and everything. And then they're like, we want you to be administrator. And that's when you get in, like, the closed door rooms. And so
tell us about the closed door rooms. I want to know about that.
Yeah. And I think I bring a really unique perspective because I think, being a caregiver myself and then getting yourself into a position of power where you actually see the motivation and the people that are making the decisions and the owners and things like that. So like that's the perspective I bring. So what you then see is then you're seeing like the financial statements and you're figuring out how people are compensated for the work that they're doing. There are, I'm not going to call it kickbacks, but there are bonuses on like who comes into the building and how much money is made and what the census is. Everything revolves around the census of the building, not on like the resources or staffing of the building, but the actual census. They want to fill the beds. So that's when you kind of see, okay, well, this is totally money motivated. This is not about, doing what's best for individuals. It's really a business, and the business is, we have to have a certain return on our investments because the owners aren't the people in the building.
No.
You never see the owners.
No.
Even in recent work I've done, they won't even tell you who the owners are. That's when you know.
Because they don't know.
Because nobody knows. They're like the mystery people behind the curtain.
Yeah, and I was just doing like a social media post about like, basically the private equity and real estate investment trusts. Those are the people who are buying long-term care. And you don't buy something unless you can make money on it or you can put a lot of debt on it.
Right.
And that's another thing that they're doing is they're putting these huge mortgages, like taking out ridiculous reverse mortgages on properties,
Right.
hiding debt that they already have,
Right.
that sort of thing, and kind of just scooping out whatever's available, either profit or debt.
And bleeding it to death. They bleed it to death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. And then, and then it becomes, the financial statements don't look good because then you're showing like a mortgage payment that's like, $65,000 or something that's ridiculous. So it looks like you're not actually making that much money.
Right.
And then it's easy to say that, Medicaid reimbursement is not high enough and that we need more money and we can't have any more staff, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
So, recently I was running the Essential Worker Healthcare Program. This is a first-in-the-nation approach to helping long-term care workers. Started in the state of Oregon, so go Oregon.
Yay!
Yeah.
Portlandia.
Portlandia, yeah. And so this was a way to, support the health and wellness of long-term care workers post-COVID-19 pandemic, where people that work in long-term care suffered horribly
Yes.
because there was no support for these individuals. I was running an assisted living during COVID, and damn, was that a fucking shit show. Like, it was a wild ride. We didn't have any COVID cases, but that's because we literally killed ourselves. Like sleeping there. I was standing in front of the front door asking people not to go outside. I was the bad guy. And that was the way to protect people. But like in reality, we caused so much loneliness, so much depression, so much isolation. Oh my God, it was insane. And during that time, I thought, how do we help workers? How do we help consumers? I need to take this pain and I need to channel it. Because, otherwise I'm going to kill myself, basically. Like,
You and me, sister.
The stress was killing me. I literally was in the hospital at one point in the emergency room, and they're like, we can't find anything wrong with you. But I was bent over, like, could not move. And so at that moment, I was like, do people just not care? That's where I was at. I was like, do people not care? And, like, I'm a huge optimist, and I am, like, positive energy. But then I kind of took a turn for like, hey, actually, is this all corrupted? And do people not really care about our loved ones, our aging and disabled family members and community members and neighbors? I started going into like a bad place, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, no. This is what I'm going to do. I am going to channel all of this pain, and I'm going to turn it into something that's beautiful, that's like a piece of art, and that's educational. And I was like, there's got to be like a two-prong kind of step of how we're going to go about changing long-term care, which is we need to talk about it earlier in life. So I'm sure you guys know this, but like I'm talking to 75, 80-year-olds, like community engagement people in Portland. They have no idea. And they are people that potentially maybe need long-term care soon, and they don't know it. And then you go talk to children, and they have no idea either, and nobody talks about it around them because it's too much. They can't handle it. So, like, let's not talk to kids about it.
It's not fair. It's not fair
Yeah.
to talk to kids about it, right?
Don't subject them to that.
Yeah.
Don't subject them,
No.
even though care is happening all around them. There's care happening in people's homes. People live with their grandparents. There's intergenerational relationships. And then when the kids do come to a facility, because we never talk about it, and because it's seen as like, there's so much ageism and ableism in our country that it's like looked on as a bad place to go.
I freaking love you. I freaking love you.
when the kids come into the facility to like sing a song, that whole thing, the kids are scared.
They're
because
scared
we
to
didn't-
death.
They're scared to death. And then the residents are just like, oh, okay, the kids come and then leave and then never come back, which makes literally no sense at all. So I decided I'm going to create a book that's going to teach kids about long-term care, who needs it, what does it look like on a really basic level. But then the book is a read together book, which means that you read it together with your adult, whoever your adult person is that you read with. And that way you can actually spark a conversation about long-term care together.
Right.
Which is so great because nobody wants to like talk about it. So that's kind of where I'm at. I have a copy. I'm sending you. This is coming to you in the mail.
I can't wait.
This publishing company called A Kid's Book About is amazing. They make books, a kid's book about racism, a kid's book about empathy, and when I was having one of my lowest moments, I was like, I'm going to write this book and I'm going to approach this publishing company. And they went with this idea because they know that kids are ready. And so it's just really exciting.
I love it so much. Can I just compliment you and tell you how smart you are and how you're doing such a mitzvah, and that for those of you that don't speak French, that means a good thing. But I know we speak the same language. But
yes.
I have a 2-year-old, or I had a 2-year-old. She's still. I mean, she's 4 now. But when my daughter had her baby, it was during COVID, and so Eden is her name. She really only met my mom through Zoom.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But so she knew Nanny, but once we got in to see her, this little 2-year-old, and I think you may have seen it in my trailer. I mean, we didn't tell her to go give hugs and kisses. She went right up there, and she knew it was Nanny, and she wasn't afraid, and she just got right on and didn't hold back. She was patting her and looking at her and kissing her and looking at her, and you realize, like, if you indoctrinate children early on and you keep those relationships alive, that when they do go into a situation like that, it's just normal.
Yeah.
It's accepted.
Yeah.
It's not scary.
It's not scary at all, and they have the natural instinct to care.
Yes.
And they're so open.
Kids are open.
And kids are resilient. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and we've been through some stuff. Through COVID, it was crazy. And people have passed away, and I've been so open with her about it. Yeah. And because of that, it's not scary and it's not stressful. And so we need to stop pretending.
And it's actually healthy. When my mom lived with me for a year and she had Alzheimer's, it was right in the middle. I called where she's straddling the fence. Basically, she's very communicative. She's physically well, everything, but she's fighting having Alzheimer's. And I did a film about it with Valerie Harper called My Mom and the Girl. And when I was going to move my mom in, I was going through divorce, and I had a 16-year-old daughter. And almost everyone down the line of my friends said, "How could you do that to your daughter? Move your mom in." Because it would be so hard. And I really thought, am I doing the wrong thing? Am I ruining her, prime teenage years? And I asked a friend of mine who was a doctor, and a female doctor, and she said, "You have got to be kidding me. You couldn't be doing a better thing." Mm-hmm. And I put this in the movie because a year later, when we finally had to move my mom out of the home, my daughter said, "I'm not ready for Nanny to leave." So, and this was a rough year. I mean, we were going through it was the ups and downs of Alzheimer's, and my mom is a pistol. We loved her to death. But I mean, it changed her life, my daughter's life, for the better, and all of ours. It's important. So what you're doing is amazing, and I love it so much. I'm going to read it to my 2 little baby girls over here. As soon as you send it to me, I'm going to read it. And I'm excited to, because I know Eden knows about Nanny having to live in another place, and we'll use Nanny as part of the example, and that's going to be so great, because that's a ripple effect what you're doing.
Yeah, and honestly, I know a lot of us are like, how do we change long-term care? And I really, once you see the power dynamics, in states and at the federal government level, and you see what's really happening, you realize that we actually need to grow adults that understand the levers of power. Because if you don't understand the levers of power and you're not educated, then you can't advocate and you can't change anything. So we need to teach kids about long-term care so they can grow up to be adults who actually know what's going on, and we can say, hey, we don't want this to be like this anymore.
But so, Jenny, in your opinion, we're on a mission to make that change, sooner than later, because every minute that goes by, I know somebody's suffering, right? And it's very difficult to think about it, but I have to. That motivates me. And how do you see Like if you could, wave a wand, like what would make the change in those levers? Like how can we change that?
Yeah. I think everything is money motivated. So currently we have a patchwork system of Medicare and Medicaid. And like I said, the payer of choice is Medicare. So the ideal thing would be that we move to a single payer Medicare system that expands to long-term care. Because when everybody's in, it would make a level playing field for everybody. Because when you're on Medicaid, whether people want to admit this or not, you get worse service. Also, we shouldn't have to spend our life's worth and our family's wealth to pay on to Medicaid and then have Medicaid pay for us, and then Medicaid come back and say, hey, by the way, here's our estate recovery and we're going to pull all of the money out of your
That's right.
family. So it's scooping out the middle class of this country, literally. Because people are paying private pay rates just to pay down to Medicaid. But once you get on Medicaid, you're basically a ward of the state and where that facility will accept you, and you have to accept the care that's provided there. You don't really have any options. So I'd say we have to move from, basically moving into a poverty situation, which is Medicaid. And, you can't have more than the resource limit. So it means that you have no money. You have no money to help your family. You have no money to help your community. So this is another thing that's separating us. So I think from a money perspective, we need to move away from spending down all of our money, all of our generational wealth, and move to a Medicare system that actually pays for long-term care. Like, you shouldn't have to do that. You should be entitled to be provided for. And this is a perfect example I say to people all the time. If there was a drug, if you were a pharmacy benefit manager and there was a drug that treated dementia, Alzheimer's, schizophrenia, strokes, whatever you want it to be, we would pay for it because the insurance payers would pay for it. But because what people need in long-term care is caregivers usually. Mm-hmm. They need time with people. And because of that, that's not paid for. Even in the Medicaid system, it's so hard to navigate just to be a paid caregiver. It's ridiculous.
Right.
So it's like we need to move to a system where it's like not money motivated, and we need our payers to be forced to pay for what is needed, which is caregiving, community, helping people stay in their own homes, ideally would be the first thing.
What's it going to take to make that happen, though? We obviously, because this is so money motivated, which goes to, people getting, in other people's pockets, our politicians in particular. How do we break that?
Yeah, but before we go into that giant subject, because that is the next question, but I just want you to explain to people listening, because it's just so complicated. Yeah. Why do people have to pay down? Like, how do they go from Medicare and private pay to Medicaid? How do you get there, and why do you have to pay down? Like, where is that? Where's that line that you cross?
Yeah, of course. So most people, whether you're over 65 and you have Medicare or you don't have Medicare, you find out that nothing's going to help me pay for the long-term care services and supports I need for my family. So I am going to have to pay out of pocket. Example is my aunt who paid $25,000 a month to keep my uncle at home with her recently. I traveled back and forth to Chicago, and it was a complete shit show because Medicare does not pay for in-home care. People don't know this. You can have a home health nurse come over to your house, and maybe you get like a shower or something, and maybe they look at your meds for a little while, and then that home health company is like, hey, we can't bill Medicare anymore, and if we don't have somebody to bill, you're going to be cut off. So then you're a unpaid family caregiver at home. So you're struggling. So is
there a limit? I'm sorry, but is there a limit to Medicare for home care? Is what you're saying?
Yeah. So eventually you graduate off of home health, because home health is for acute situations where you are transitioning.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you're transitioning out of the hospital, and you get some home health. They get you to basically a plateau. And then you graduate off of it and you're no longer eligible for it. So then you're at home, and usually the woman of the house, if there is a woman of the house, she starts not being able to work anymore. and she needs to become the family caregiver that's unpaid. And then you are losing an income in your home. So this is why I'm saying we're not supporting people staying in their own homes.
Right.
Because the people at home that need to help you, they have to stop working to do that.
Now,
So
some people
yeah.
pushed back on me, like with my documentary, and are saying, well, why'd you leave your mom in there for 6 months if she was suffering? Why didn't you take her home? You know, and
Blame game. Blame game.
And said, I took care of my dad at home. I took care of my mom at home. Well, at the point where I realized what was going on, my mom her acuities were so high that it would be a disservice to bring her home.
Yeah.
Unless I was in the 1% and could bring, a full-time registered nurse or two, at least, how was I supposed to do that, right?
Yeah, and that's because everything in this, industry and country is put on the individual. So it's like, why did you not take care of that person? You should have stayed home with them. Well, we know that people have to pay their bills, people have to work, Also, when somebody's acuity becomes so high where you need multiple caregivers, which is the situation that's happening to many people, is that people need two-person assist. How are you going to provide two-person assist at home?
Right.
It's really difficult to do unless you have enormous amounts of money to always have a caregiver sitting there. And even with that, like my uncle, he hated the caregiver that came from the agency. So he would always rely on my brother. So it was like my brother wasn't there. He was like having lots of behaviors and things were going sideways. So you need a
Right.
whole group of people to help you stay at home.
Totally.
So I
And-
think shameful that people would blame you for that.
Oh, it's
because
awful.
Your mother's acuity was so high. Like,
No, it's terrible.
What are you going to do?
They literally said, I've gotten how many, Dawn, now, shame on you for,
it's endless.
and
I
I'm
mean,
like, shame on
how
you.
How dare you?
I'm like, shame on you. You don't even know my situation. Are you kidding me? My mom was my favorite person in the whole world. I would do anything for her. They're like, well, why? You can, because my response is, and I don't need to answer everybody, but part of me says I need to educate people as to why you can't take people home, and
Yes.
and that I know that there are some states that family caregivers can get paid a certain amount. Am I right?
Yes.
I wasn't
Yes.
aware of that at the time. I wasn't aware that California is one of those states.
Yes.
I didn't know that. I was paying for everything out of my pocket and my mother's pocket, whatever monies she had left at the time, and that was it. We didn't know.
Yeah, most people have no idea that there's a home care worker program in most states where Medicaid has been expanded for long-term care. So you go through home care worker training, you can be paid. Usually it's a consumer worker relationship but the state is actually paying the Medicaid money to people. But just navigating that in and of itself and keeping somebody who, they're making enough money too, that it's actually good care and that people show up, that's a whole nother issue, is that people are paid so poorly that it's not easy to find somebody and keep them and be able to have the consistency you need, especially for somebody who has dementia or Alzheimer's. You need the same person there who's specially trained and knows
100%.
that person, knows how to approach them, all of the things.
But a family member, can they apply for this money as well? And
Yes.
is that in every state?
It's not in every state, no. So there's lots of unpaid family caregivers. So there's a huge movement of family caregivers of there's 53 million family caregivers. A lot of them are unpaid. So those are people that quit their jobs and are not bringing in income and are staying home and taking care of their loved one in their home, and they are struggling and they are unseen and unheard.
Right. And this is what I'm trying to educate, as you are, to people, to say, first of all, here I am taking care of my mom before she was on Medicaid, right? And I was like, I had no idea that even existed. I'm trying to keep my production company going and be, a writer director, and I'm juggling, and I'm lived in a live work space where I had my office downstairs in the, where everyone else did, and my mom's going down there, and there she is I'm trying to navigate her while I'm navigating work.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare.
Yes.
It's a nightmare. But, I feel like it's so sad that there's stigma against caregivers as well from people that just don't get it until they're in it.
Yeah. Well, caregiving is looked at as like an unskilled job. And this goes back, this is like an educational moment. This goes back to like the New Deal days, where like when they started making labor laws, they specifically cut out domestic workers, most of them women, and most of those people were caregivers. So from the get-go, we said work that's in the house is not skilled work. And so now this isn't seen as a career. This is like, oh, that's that thing you do, but your real job is this other thing. But if we looked at it as a career and it as skilled work, then you'd probably be paid more. You'd probably have benefits. You probably would feel, loved and supported by the general community, and you'd be part of the national narrative of like, what do we honor as good work?
100%. Yeah. I mean, at least you can deduct your children and your taxes. You can't do that with a loved one that you're caring for, which is something I find absurd. At least, right? At least if you're not pulling in much money, how about let's get in some tax relief from it,
Yes,
right?
totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So now you are independent.
Mm-hmm.
And my God, first of all, you need to do a TED Talk on all this so that everyone understands how it works.
People have told me that like many times.
No, it's true because we need people to, I'm doing it through my documentary. Dawn and I are doing it, and we're being as bold and as transparent as possible. And if people, like we've screened some of it to a few people, and we're showing everything. Yeah. And my mom had a stage 4 wound. We're showing it because I want people. I didn't know what a wound was. I didn't know what a pressure sore was. I thought, and I say it in the documentary. I thought it was like when you're leaning on your elbow too long and it's a little sore and red. I had no idea that it can create a canyon in your skin.
Yes.
And what comes from it and the the avalanche that it causes and basically, leads you to death if it's not being taken care of. And I had no idea of the financial motivation behind not caring for somebody, the motivation for not wanting to, to somehow claim that they're NPO out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. Oh, they're an NPO. That's right. That's what they did to my mom. And my mom could eat and drink fine. But no, she's NPO, so we have to keep her on.
She probably didn't qualify for speech pathology.
Exactly.
They couldn't bill for it.
Took me 8 weeks to get a woman to come in and do this and say, nope, she can't swallow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the kinds of things that we're trying to reveal. And we're a team right here. This is a team. This is, and we're up against it though, because people don't want to believe it. And they don't want to, I don't know if you get this, but, we get a lot, do a lot of talking about this. And it's like, perhaps your mom's facility, 5-star facility in Los Angeles, is an outlier. And it's like, no. It's the opposite. If there is a good place, they are the outlier. Am I right?
Yeah.
They don't even say perhaps. They don't even say perhaps. They say it is. Oh, well, that's just, that's, a one-off,
I think like the narrative is like there's a few bad players out there.
Yes.
And I think that narrative works really well because then you don't scratch the surface of, the dirty foundation, So I think, if anything, the 5-star facility is the place that has the best care and probably has more staff because they receive probably a lot of private pay and Medicare residents, and they probably keep people moving out of the facility. Facilities, when you get past that 20 days or even the 100 days, so people don't even know this part, is like you get 20 days of paid acute care at a facility, a nursing facility. Then you go into a copay status up to 100 days with Medicare. But most people can't stay acute because they can't stay skilled. You have to have a skilled need, like you need PT or you need OT, you need speech, you have an IV, something like that. But once you become just a long-term care resident and you need ongoing 24/7 care, that's when things get a little sideways because you're there and you probably spent down on the Medicaid and you're getting a lot less care. And so I'd say it's not an outlier situation. When you have like one patient to, you have 14 patients to one caregiver, how could anybody be receiving the care they need? There's no way. And a current staffing model, which obviously this is a very hot topic around the staffing mandate, is that, even that, you're supposed to be providing that person with a quality of life and a dignified manner, with them having a freedom of choice. Those are in the rules for home and community-based services and for skilled nursing.
That's right.
But there is no way that you have freedom of choice when there is one caregiver for 14 residents, because that caregiver is running around the facility being like, I got to get this person out of bed, this person has to go there, this person needs the meds,
100%.
And when you're CNA, you feel bad, because when you walk in the room, that person wants to engage with you and be like, hey, how's your day? And watch the CNN with them. And you can't do that.
No, there's no time. And what we've found as well, and I'm sure you're privy to this as well, is that if you do complain, and if you do, there's really nowhere to go anyway. And they will say to you, and we feature people that have been evicted out of their facility because they're too high, because they talk, because they ask, because they advocate. And really, I've also had that question, why didn't you move your mom to another facility? Where? And are they going to take her because she is Medicaid? And they're going to say, just like you said in the beginning of the conversation, there's no beds.
Oh, yeah. Especially if your mom had behaviors. Oh, there's no beds available for her. Because everything is going in one. So in like a skilled nursing facility, you're taking in everybody. So you're taking in somebody who has a hip replacement and is only going to be there for like 12 days. And then somebody who has like end stage Alzheimer's, who has, terrible night terrors at night. So those caregivers are trying to care for all of those different people. And the people that are bringing in the people to the facilities, a lot of the time they don't care what the care needs are or how much time it's going to take. It depends on how much like money they can make, and that's just how this world works.
Yeah. They're commodities. They're definitely commodities.
Yes.
And my mom didn't have any behavior. It was all just, because I think that sometimes if you don't have behavior and you're lovely, because my mom was lovely. Oh, she just was. And I think it's easier to ignore. You put them in a wheelchair, because my mom was, non-ambulatory after given Depakote for no reason. That caused her to be non-ambulatory and incontinent. That's a whole nother story. But, it's easy to ignore because she's so lovely. She'll walk by, hi, I'm beautiful, she'll say, and they're like, we'll get to her later. We'll get to her later. We'll get to her later. And meantime, she's sitting in urine all day long. And
Even when you do like handover at a facility, from one CNA to the next CNA or one nurse to the next nurse, they do a transition handoff.
Right.
And in that handoff, they're like, bed 2 has behaviors, and bed 4 needs to go to dialysis, and bed 5, they're good to go. They don't need anything. That's probably your mom.
That was probably my mom, because my mom was just so happy when people to talk, and she was very social. God, you're gorgeous. God, hello, handsome. She was like that, right? And so they were like, she's terrific. We don't have to bother with her. And I really do think that that's what happened. And then it exasperated during, COVID, because then they really were isolating everybody. And so, and then that's when the proverbial shit hit the fan and I wouldn't have known until, obviously, anyway, but the point is that there is no place to go. There is no other place to go. And even if there were, how are you, what are you trading? One devil for the other devil? What are you doing? And then you're disrupting this person. So you really are in a situation where you're dog paddling for the one you love. Yes. And you're trying the best you can not to anger, not to create combative situations. And I'm like you. I'm Pollyanna. I'm the girl that was always the positive and very right, Dawn. I'm like, hi, I'm have the disease to please, so I don't want to. I don't want to disrupt the ship at all. But it comes to a point like you, or you're just like, am I on another planet? Like, what's going on? Watch my mom swallow. She swallows. Look at her want to eat. And they're looking at me and saying, no, she cannot. We're not going to do that. And if you want to do that, take her home.
And when you're in it, you don't, and without this knowledge, you don't know the forest you are in. You have no idea that this is happening and why these things are happening. And when you are, like Cece's you want to trust the people who are wearing the uniforms and who have the stethoscopes.
But I'm also not stupid. Like my instinct was telling me something was wrong. Right.
But you didn't know what it was.
I didn't know what it was.
So when you don't know what it is, it's impossible to navigate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're playing whack-a-mole because now it's like a whole avalanche, and one thing triggers another thing. So then you're like, what do I address first? And how do I address it?
Yeah, and if you start addressing things, then you become the bad guy at the facility, which I'm sure you became the bad guy at the facility. And then we'd be like, oh my God, Jimmy Smith's family's here again, and oh my God, they're causing a fuss, and people are avoiding you.
Yep.
I mean, even I became the bad guy, and all I would do is ask where can I get a chair, and it was just like, you literally like they would just stare at you and not even answer you.
Yeah.
It was that.
And I didn't even do anything wrong. I didn't do any, like we were so nice and kind to everybody. I was like, what can I do to help you? What can I do? And like, it just, it really was eye-opening for me. It was really the motivation. I could not do this film because I was blown away about how brazen the administration was and how dedicated they were to that business model. Mm-hmm. That they lost all morality. Mm-hmm. As to and
for you saw that firsthand, and a really, really sad moment in our time where so many people were neglected. And it's not like things, it's not like the staffing changed immediately during COVID. It just exposed. COVID just exposed what was happening. And now what we need to do is day by day, we have to talk about it every single day, like we're broken records, so that people don't forget. Because it's like, during COVID, it was such a big deal, and like all the essential workers and the heroes and all of that. But in reality, it's like people have almost forgotten about it. So now that we've kind of got a little transparency, we need to keep that going.
Right. And so what do you think about what's going on now in terms of, the minimum staffing mandate that was proposed by Biden, and then now, just in the last month, we have these senators and the lobby that are now, proposing a bill to stop that under all circumstances. And mind you, if you're, listeners, that mandate anyway was below the standard. It wasn't even at the standard that studies have shown that we need. It was below, and now they're trying to fight that and say that if you again, it's the same rhetoric. If you do that, you're going to, that will kill the nursing home industry. There won't be enough money. They'll shut down, and our most vulnerable won't have any place to go. But that's bullshit, because there's plenty of money. There's more than enough money to staff properly.
Yeah, no. I always just laugh. Like when you walk by like the front of the building, they have to post the staffing sheet. And the staffing is like 1 to 7 people during the day. And so just when you do, like we're forced into this situation because we don't have, the other side, the industry side, who's like, we're going to do the right thing. So then, you've had to put these mandates in places in certain states, they have them. And now on the federal government, side of things, they're going to mandate it for everybody. But the only reason that we're at this point is because we know that the industry won't do the right thing because there hasn't been enough staffing. So now we're saying, okay, you're going to be forced to do it, even if it's not at the level that advocates like us want, because we know it's not enough. But it's a start. And let's see if this can actually fix something. I would say what I have learned just from my time in this industry is that everybody is beholden to somebody. So I would say, on the federal government level, people are beholden to lobbyists, insurance payers, pharmaceutical companies. There's a lot of people benefiting from this. Think about all the antipsychotic drugs that are being prescribed in nursing homes all over for people that never had a schizophrenia diagnosis before. It's wild how that works. So it's like there's so many people that need to be removed from the situation. I would say we have the most pro-care, long-term care administration than we've ever had, ever. So I'd say first thing, this election 2024 is like super important. We have to have, Joe Biden to continue on because he has signaled in so many different ways that, hey, we are going to push forward and we are going to make change. We also have support from like senators like Warren, Senator Sanders, Senator Casey. These people, they know. But the other side, they also are beholden to the industry.
That's
and the
right.
industry is very strong.
Very strong
Like,
and very rich.
Between them and the pharmaceutical companies, whoa.
Okay,
Like,
according to our partner, Rick Montcastle, who prosecuted nursing
Yeah.
homes,
Oh,
the nursing home industry is probably stronger than the pharmaceutical, and he also prosecuted, Purdue Pharma and Abbott
Yeah.
Labs for Depakote, and
Yeah.
won. But
Yeah.
and he reckons they're stronger, and
Yeah.
why? Because they're under the radar. That's why.
And I'd say another reason that they're so strong that people don't know is they're smart. They have embedded themselves in state, local governments. They've also embedded themselves in the federal government.
That's right.
Where they are relying on the industry people for functioning, like operational functioning. They serve as consultants. They're the elder advocates that show up at all the meetings and the scheduling of meetings to have other meetings. They're there everywhere. They show up. And
Right.
that's because they have time and resources to do it. So when you go to these meetings, I serve as a commissioner for senior services for the state of Oregon for the governor. When you go to meetings that are about long-term care or you hear hearings, there aren't consumers there because consumers can't show up because they are ones that potentially have so many barriers to show up. Caregivers aren't there because they need to work.
Right.
So who's there? The elder advocates show up, and that's the industry. So
Right.
they're just embedded everywhere.
So how
And
do we fight that, Jenny? How do we fight
Oh
that?
my
Because
God.
here's my idea. I mean, this is what I am proposing: is that
Yeah.
we need a movement. We
Yeah.
need to shame the politicians that have allowed this and are benefiting off of these people that have embedded themselves within the system. And if we let them know that we know as a collective, as a major collective force of people, I mean, we are the only currency. We can't fight the lobby with currency.
Yeah.
Cash, but we can
Yeah.
with power and with
Yes.
the strength of a collective, right? So
Yes.
and in talking about California, and I say this a lot, is like Gavin Newsom, he's priming for the presidency. So, hello, your constituency knows what you're up to. Fix it and stop doing it. And really, step up and stop taking, campaign contributions from the lobby, which he does. And, he got caught for one and ended up giving it to charity. Not good enough. Stop doing it altogether. So the only way we're going to get that to happen, I think, is through a movement like MAD, like Black Lives Matter, like Me Too movement.
Yes.
On the ground, the pussy,
Oh, yes.
pink pussy. I mean, and for all of the people that are caregiving, they'll participate virtually. But we have to go throughout every city nationally.
Yes.
We have to let the politicians know and our federal and state government know that we know what's going on. And this is our money. Medicare and Medicaid is paid by who?
Yeah.
Us.
It's our money. It's our tax dollars are paying private equity companies to not take care of our families.
To hurt us. To hurt us. And it's for all of us because God willing, we're all going to get older and we're probably going to need some long-term care at some point.
God, yeah.
And God forbid it stays the same because it's only getting worse. Am I right? It's only getting worse because it's turning into the individual nursing home can't survive because they've got all these there's no competition anymore. So it's becoming monopolized. So that's my proposal because I know that there are some good players out there, but how do we engage them for every, like the few amazing politicians that you mentioned, they've got a laundry list this long because there's so few people like them. So, I think the public needs to we need to take this problem into our own hands because.
Yeah.
And to the ballot box too. We have to take it to the ballot box. We have to, it's more,
Yes.
we can shame these politicians, but if they're not in power anymore and they're voted out and they know we're going to vote them out, that's part of this too. And, it's so hard because, the nursing home lobby, they're like a wolf in sheep's clothing. They're presented, their image, their marketing is all, we're here for the nurses, we're here for the residents. You look at their commercials and you go, oh, they're so nice. They're so great. They really are looking out for everybody. And it's the complete opposite. And their marketing's brilliant.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Well, because there's no
And that's what you're up
transparency.
against.
There's no transparency. So, it's like, it's legal. It's legal corruption is what it is, because the way the system is set up, the way CMS has set it up, and the lack of oversight, lack of enforcement, all of that stuff, it feeds that machine so beautifully. And so to game the system is frankly quite easy.
Yeah, and I would say, Don, you're right, is like, first of all, we should be demanding from our elected officials and politicians who want to run for office, what is your care platform? Like, this is a huge issue. Like, people want to talk about climate change. People want to talk about, the war in Israel. What about what's actually happening to our families every single day? Like, what is your stance on care? And most of them would probably be like, I don't know. Like, what are you even talking about?
Right.
But, like, the majority of us care about this.
Right.
One of the reasons that I think it's not such a big political issue is because we haven't successfully woven this subject into our cultural narrative. So that's another thing that I'm like really focused on, and I know you guys are focused on too, which is I started a production company called Gal Pal Productions. I met a filmmaker last year, and she was like, if you don't tell the visual story in the medium that people are watching right now and it get into the general population via social media or whatnot, nobody cares about that. So you need to weave the story of long-term care into the cultural narrative, which is what I think you guys are going to do with this movie that's coming out. Is like, this is going to be the conversation starter. People are not going to be able to look away. So like, I think what we do next is we also have like people that are champions on social media who are calling these people out and being like, hey, why did you vote the way you did? And like, we need to be kind of as aggressive as they are, and that's not my standard. But I think I'm at the point where I'm so frustrated. Like in my last job, one of the reasons I left was like because employers were involved, and I need to be unbeholden to anybody. That is where the problem is that people are beholden. If you go on your Secretary of State website in California, you can look up your local politician and see how much money the local lobby has given to those people. And what you will see, and what I have seen, is that they are giving to everybody. And when I try
But that's just on the surface.
But that's
that's not what's happening underneath.
But because we were going to show those charts,
Yeah, yeah.
but they
We're
don't
gonna
show.
have a list.
We were going to have a list, a rolling list at the end, credits, but it only shows part of what they get.
like $5,000.
Yeah, it says 5,000. It says
2,000.
2,000. No, what we want to know is what's going on in the alleys, because that's what's happening.
Yeah, and I think it's also like, You're not donating just because that person needs that $3,500. What you're doing is you're signaling to them that like, hey, you're going to do what I want. When we make these rules, when we enact these policies, they are front and center being like, operationally, the employers could never do this. Oh, they could operationally never handle those things. You're going to bury the industry, which is just not true. They will find a way. There's no reason why people are coming into this industry right now if people weren't making money. That's just not how that works,
Exactly. No, 100%. Oh my God. Well, we're at an hour. I just want to talk to you like all the time because we're all so on the same page and we're so cut from the same cloth in a way, that I think that you're very similar in your heart that I am, and it pains me, but it also angers me too. And that's what I said when I first started this project. I said, I want to punch people in their hearts so that we can wake up their hearts, and I want to punch them in the stomach so we can activate them to say, hey, wait a minute, this is wrong. And, and there's two things that we always say is like, if you don't have empathy for our most vulnerable and for our elders, think about your own pocketbook and that you are paying this money and it's not going to go to you, because these companies are extracting over 60% of the profit.
Yep.
How can a business run on less than, 50% of their, it's ridiculous, but that's what's going on, if not more. That's all that we have found so far. But that's the latest, research. But UCLA just did an amazing research of transparency and found these numbers, but that's awful. So and that's your money. So, if that doesn't motivate you, I don't know what does. So, also ageism, we have to get over that. We have to figure out a way.
Yeah, everybody is so siloed by age and ability. And that's like one issue of itself is when you go to a facility, it's just the sameness. And so it's like, if we supported people to stay in homes, if we paid people so that they wouldn't lose their income, and we supported them in community, then we'd be a more diverse community. We're taking all the older people and all the disabled people and be like, you go over here, and like nobody's watching, as opposed to being in your community where your neighbors are watching.
100%, yeah. Well, I'm Team Jenny. And
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I love you so much. I love everything you're doing. I want us to, always work together, okay?
Yes.
Because I think that we're on the same path, and I want to,
we are.
Help you as much as I know you're helping me. So let's do this. Thank you so much for everything you're doing, for your brilliance. Your parents, I'm sure everyone's so proud of you. You're just a really brilliant woman, lovely person. You have a giant heart, and you deserve the best of everything. You really do.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. This is great. And, I just want to continue to chip away at it every day. Just a little bit every day, I think is the way forward.
It has to be, because it's too big, right? Like, if you think about the scope of it, I actually get nervous. It makes me, it's very scary. Can't wait for everybody, this book, for you, tell everybody the name of the book so we know it's coming out. It's long-term. Tell me the name of the book. Your book.
So the book is called A Kid's Book About Long-Term Care. And it's available on Amazon. It's available at Barnes & Noble. You can find it anywhere on the internet, basically. And I've teamed up with a few national organizations as well that are featured in the book. And those organizations are Consumer Voice, Caring Across Generations, SEIU, a lovely woman, if you don't know her, Teepa Snow, and Positive Approach to Care. She's fabulous.
She's in our documentary.
I'm obsessed with Teepa, and an intergenerational community called Bridge Meadows, who are planning to expand nationwide soon, and is a really interesting model of care as well, where we do have a more diverse community-like approach. So go find the book. It's coming out April 2nd. I'm so excited to share it with everybody. It's really a conversation starter for you and your family.
That's so great. And we're like literally like walking parallel, because we work with Consumer Voice. National Consumer Voice is our fiscal sponsor and our partner on this project. Caring Across Generations is like, I monitored a big chat at the WGA for them. I love that organization. And what was the other one you said? There was
SEIU is the union that is across long-term care, so they're involved. SEIU International, I love them.
Yeah.
And Teepa Snow.
Oh, and Teepa, there you go. Yeah. And Teepa's in our documentary. I think I just love her. And so there we go. Okay. All right. Well, all right. Thank you so much. I love you, and I love you, which brings us to what, Dawn? There's so much love here today.
You love her. We all love each other. There's love everywhere. And that, you know why? Because love is powerful, love is contagious, and love conquers all. So we thank everybody for watching and listening today. And please like, follow, do all those things, and definitely like and follow Jenny Abeling. Her work is truly amazing.
And my dog thinks so, too.
Even our dogs agree. Yes, so we thank you, and we'll see you next time on
Absolutely.
Love Conquers All. Take care, everybody.
Bye.